Greetings, this is Jan Spencer in Eugene, Oregon, and this is a presentation pushing back on cars in Europe and public places in Europe as well. The two often go together. So we're going to see a little bit of a slideshow. The last two summers, 22 and 23, I spent uh, 3 months in Europe each summer, and I just really like Europe. I buy a bicycle and put it on the train, put it on the ferry, put it on the bus sometimes, and ride it a lot as well. But uh, part of my trip is exploring urban places, not only the beautiful countryside, but urban places too. I've got a big interest in urban land use. So let's just do this. We're going to go here and pull up this screen share. And I love Zoom. This is just such an awesome way to share information. So public places and pushing back on cars in Europe, April 13, 2024. This is my website, suburbanpermaculture.org. And I want to mention, of course, being on YouTube, this will be on YouTube. You can pause and take a closer look anywhere, anytime you want. For example, this is a place you might want to take a closer look. Selected aspects of paradigm shift. This is a part of a series of presentations I've done. This is, I think, the eighth one here on YouTube. Selected aspects of paradigm shift. These are some kind of like sound bites on paradigm shift. You can pause here and take a closer look. Um, Land use is an enormous part of paradigm shift. How can we make our world more ecological, uplift culture and civic participation, big parts of paradigm shift. I also want to mention that I'm doing uh, a, a seminar in May on Saturday mornings. Again, you can pause on this, but we're going to be talking about different aspects of paradigm shift. Of course, economics aspects of paradigm shift. Much of the seminar is going to be about real life actions of showing what paradigm shift can actually look like. A lot of people already doing this. It's very exciting. So, and then these are the different um, educational productions I had. These are the ones on YouTube. I mentioned also a number of articles in Post Carbon's Institute's Resilience magazine that's online. You can search Resilience magazine, Post Carbon. This is actually an audio spirit in action radio that's about 50 minutes right there. And this right here is a YouTube video, a tour of my quarter-acre suburban permaculture project here in Eugene. And here you can find more information on my website, and you can also search my name, Jan Spencer Trimmer, on YouTube. And Resilience, that website, and you can find all this stuff as well. So we're going to take a look at a number of towns, cities I've visited in Europe over the past couple of years. And I want to show some pictures and do a little bit of explanation. This is a combination of two trips to Europe right here. I decided I would focus on several places. We'll see how our time goes uh, for how much further we go beyond these locations here. There's just great stories about these different places. They all have stories to me about pushing back on cars, other than Ostia, which of course predates cars by quite a few centuries, but some interesting pictures there too. So look a little bit. Copenhagen, here, Groningen in northern Holland, Houten, which is south of Amsterdam, and Utrecht, and Vauban. This is a neighborhood in Freiberg, Germany, down here. Paris, of course, Barcelona, lots of pictures of Barcelona. Alghero, this is a town on the northwest coast of Sardinia where I've spent some time. And we'll see some pictures of Alghero, and some of those are, of course, pushing back on cars as well. So here is Copenhagen. This is a picture from a couple generations ago. Copenhagen has been a bicycle town for a long time. So when we hear and read about Copenhagen and all the bikes, which there's lots, there's a long history in Copenhagen about biking. And there's an interesting bit of history here I want to share just a little bit. After World War II, of course, much of Europe was devastated. And of course, the United States supplied a fair amount of recovery, and that was very appropriate too. Of course, the recovery to some degree in some circumstances was, we'd love for you to recover and start looking more like American cities. And even there were American highway engineers who came over to places like Amsterdam with the intention of encouraging the Dutch to follow the lead of the United States and build lots of limited access highways, like the United States was in the act of, in the early going. So um, then when in the 50s and 60s, there were different events, the so-called Arab oil embargo, a greater consciousness of uh, what do we want our cities to look like, as the some of the Northern European authorities were kind of edging towards more of this American style transportation. There became a big pushback by a popular pushback. This is Copenhagen right here, and this is an anti-car rally right here in Copenhagen. And there were other anti-car actions as well in the 60s and 70s, people saying we don't want to have American style transportation. Well, there's plenty of American style transportation in Europe anyway. There's lots, even in these beautiful cities and towns that we like to think of as being bike friendly. Yes, there's some bike friendly areas, but I'll show some pictures that might throw a little cold water on some of our impressions of some of these places. So, but this is a couple pictures that I came upon online. And of course, you can see these are the same buildings here as over here, same place, except here, the open area here is full of cars, and here it's full of people. So this is one example in Copenhagen of the ideal to make their cities more bikeable, more walkable. There's other examples of these kinds of places as well. So these are pictures I took when I was in Copenhagen, and that was last year in Copenhagen. Lots of people on bikes in the center part of Copenhagen. You just flat out see more bicycles than you do cars. There's some cars here too, but they're not very many. And I also was just super impressed in Copenhagen with just all the public places of just people like to get out and just be around other people. And Copenhagen is just a wonderful city for that. It just happened to be that when I was there, I think it was later late May. It was the warmest weekend they had had so far. I think it was close to almost 70 degrees. So it's just my good timing that people were out in more summertime type mode. But Copenhagen is just a quite an amazing city. Lots of very modernistic architecture as well. Uh, I can't say the word in Danish, but this is their kind of snake bikeway right here that kind of threads its way through between some buildings and over some canals to be a really important bike connector. Here's a side view of it here, and this is another view entering or exiting when you see pictures and about Copenhagen. This is always one of the sort of darling projects right here, and it is beautiful too. So this is another place in Copenhagen. There's just bikes all over the place. It's really wonderful. This is one of the main streets in Copenhagen right here, and some cars go by now and then, but not very many. My Danish friend told me this street right here has more bike traffic than any place in Europe. I don't know, but there were a lot of bikes. Another area which Copenhagen is well known for, is Christiania. This is a sort of anarchic squat on a former military base that's been there for like 40 years. And the Danish authorities kind of indulge it some. Um, but this is a car-free area, and the locals like to think of it as not being a part of Denmark. It's kind of a free town, and people do live here. And so I spent part of an afternoon in Christiania, quite an amazing place. This is a map that shows different bikeways. I think some of these have been built. I've been on part of one of these. I don't know if all these are constructed, but the whole idea is to have like bike freeways. Of course, this is out almost 10 miles here to connect the more distant parts of Copenhagen into the center. And of course, there's no bikeways from this direction because this is salt water right here. But Copenhagen has absolutely made a big effort to encourage bicycle riding. These are a couple more just public places. Just people like to be out around other people. This just like thousands of people, and this is a part of the harbor here. This is part of the harbor, and like I mentioned, this was the warmest day they've had probably in months. So people are out grabbing some sun. Not too many people swimming. I imagine the water was pretty cold. So I left Copenhagen, and then I went to Groningen. This is actually 2 years ago when I was in Groningen, and that was my first destination in Europe for that trip. And I stayed with my friend Hanukkah, and we found this bicycle that I bought in Groningen. This would be the bike that I would have for my entire trip. Uh, what I did was a trip with a bike rather than a bike trip. I took the train a lot, put the bike on the train a lot, but I did a lot of bike riding too. So you can just see this is just a couple blocks from downtown Groningen. I think population maybe 35 or 40,000, something like that. A nice sized town, not a big city, but people just live more dense. That's pretty much Europe in general. The residential density is just much higher than it is. I'll show you a graphic in a little bit that dramatically illustrates that. So out biking around, this was actually out away from downtown where the bike shop was where I bought my bike. These are all impounded bicycles that were not parked properly, and the authorities came and picked them up. And if somebody found their bike wasn't where they left it a week earlier, they can come here and see if they can find it, and they can pay the ransom, maybe 50 euros, and get their bike back. If you can find it, there's like thousands of bicycles. This here, of course, is by the train station. This is the train station up here, and just they're combining places to put your bike. You put your bike here and you go off somewhere on the train. That's pretty standard in a lot of places in Europe. And we went for a bike ride around this big lake, and this is a restaurant right on the lakeside, very nice. And there's a bike parking area. There was not a parking area for cars. I think this was probably delivery vehicles could drive to this place right here, but this wasn't a place you would drive to. This is how people arrive to this place. You either walk or you ride a bicycle. Well, Groningen all sounds great, and it's got a lot of nice features. This particular space right here is within a half a kilometer of downtown Groningen. I'll show you these beautiful pictures of Groningen. This is nearby. These are big box stores, and this is big box store parking. And meanwhile, not so far away from the big parking area, this is a main street in Groningen, and looking one way and looking in the other direction. This is a car-free. It's car-free street. And you can see all the people walking and all the bikes, just kind of quiet. And these are, of course, just shops, and people are living up here above the shops. That's not anything unusual in most of the world. So Houten and Utrecht. Houten was my destination. This was my first trip right here. Uh, I went from Groningen, took the train back to Amsterdam. This is Amsterdam right here, but my destination actually was Houten. But you have to go through Utrecht to get to Houten. And then, of course, this is a Dutch freeway right here. I saw traffic jams in Holland, so it's not like everything is by bicycle, far from it. But the bicycle infrastructure is pretty nice in Holland. This is bike infrastructure, and you've got signs. This is actually between Houten and Utrecht right here. There's this kind of bike infrastructure all over the place. And I was biking around Houten in an area, lots of the area is either no cars or very few cars. And went over this little canal right here, and I saw this is actually an olive tree, and I'm very much into plants. I saw this olive tree, uh, and then over here, just off the picture, there was a climbing rose, a beautiful red rose, and I was stopped to look at the olive tree and the rose plant, and this little guy right here was down here, and he saw me, and he ran up. This is where people access where they live right here. This is a car-free. These are homes right here. But he ran up to me and started saying something to me in Dutch, and of course I don't know Dutch. But his mom was down here. They were just coming back from somewhere, and you just assume uh, people of this age speak English, and of course she does. She speaks fine English, and she came up to me, and we talked. And she told me that he was telling me that's our rose plant. I water that. It was really funny. Just a great little interaction. And she told me about this olive that's in the ground. Olives don't really like temperatures much below 15 degrees, so it gives you a bit of an idea of what a climate is like. But just a wonderful interaction. Her husband had bought this house years before, and I kind of asked her a little bit about the cost of living, and she just said if they sold this now, they'd have a fortune with this house right here. But of course, why would they want to go anywhere? It's just a really humane type of urban living right there. So this is just a in the urban part of Utrecht right here. Just a couple cars went by while I was there, but not many, and they're going real slow and hardly any at all. This is just a typical scene in Utrecht right here in the more central area, of course. Like in the US, the further you go from downtown, the more cars there tend to be. And this is uh, on the way between Utrecht and Houten right here. And you can, if you look, you can see this is all bike infrastructure here. It's very nicely laid out. So I biked further, and this is how I entered into Houten on the bikeway. This is from Utrecht right here. And this picture here, where I stayed with some contacts, is what part of Houghton looks like. Uh, kind of townhouse, row house type of architecture in this part of Houghton. The story, the brief story with Houghton is, and here it is, there's two parts of Houghton right here, kind of like a figure eight. And do they have an urban growth boundary or what? You know, you got built area here and over here across the road. It's it's agriculture. This is a different kind of land use. But the short story on Houten was that almost 50 years ago, the Dutch government said, we need you to prepare to have more population in your town. So the Houghton planners decided that they were going to accommodate that need to go from a village of a few thousand to this is about 25,000 here and this is about 25,000 here. Um, they wanted this new development to be discouraging cars. That's the design in the first place. There's plenty of cars here, but one of the primary and most interesting features of Houten is that if you lived, say, in this area here, and you wanted to go visit somebody over here, you couldn't drive across the downtown, the central part of Houten. You'd have to get out on this ring road and go all the way around here. Even if you were here and wanted to go over here, it's faster to bike. You'd have to go way out this way and way back around that way. This is the center part of this part of Houten right here. And then, of course, there's a train that goes right through the middle of everything. So we think of Europe as predates cars, and much of it does, but there are places in Europe that are new development. This is a new town. This is 40, 50 years old, designed to discourage cars. And the people I stay with don't have a car, so that was nice. So this is Houghton, and this is the center part of Houghton, and it's more densely residential in the center part. This is kind of what you would call downtown. Of course, you have commercial here, and of course, there's this canal right here, and no cars go here. These are some trucks. They had a big market in this big open space. You can see this truck right here. It's the same truck here, so this view extends over this way, and this is just a really large public space, and the more densely residential here as well. And of course, they have some water, big water features too. And down this road to the left is where the train station is. And this is the train station. When we went from here going this way, this road right here is this road right here. This is the train station here, and this is City Hall back here. Look at all the bicycles. I'll show a picture of the train station in a moment, but this is kind of the more it is suburban. This is suburban, but it is a more gentle form of suburbia. There are cars here. The speed limit's like 25 kilometers an hour, so people aren't going very fast here. There are cars. A lot of people have cars there, but uh, there's not so many, and they're not going fast. And there's lots of bicycles too. So this is the train station. This is a train station for a town of 25,000 right here. That other part of Houten and the figure eight, it also has its own train station. So you can take the train to Utrecht. It take 6 minutes to go to Utrecht, and then of course you can go anywhere. This is down below the tracks. Again, lots of bicycles, and you would have some rental bikes over here, and people keep bikes here underneath the where the tracks are. So yeah, you could pretty easily live in Hoden without a car. So Vauban was the next destination. This is uh, southwest Germany. Freiberg is the name of this town. Um, my cat's distracting me a little bit. The story on Vauban is it's a bigger town, but in the Cold War period, there was a big French army base. And this is the base right here. And then when allegedly the Cold War ended, it looked like it did for a while. The French said, "We don't need to be here anymore. Well, here's your land back." So this is quite a good number of acres. The Freiberg authorities decided that they were going to build a neighborhood here and discourage cars from this neighborhood. This is the same view. This right here would be this right here. You can see this tree line here over here. So I stayed several days in Vauban with some friends, and um, you can have a car if you live in the Vauban neighborhood, but you've got to park it in a city parking garage that might be a, a 15 or 20-minute walk away. You can't park on these streets. You can deliver something, but you can't drive here and just leave your car. But what you can do is right through the middle of uh, of the entire neighborhood of about 1,500 right in the middle right here. That's a tram right here. That's what this is right here. It's a tram. And you can see lots of trees. When they redeveloped it, they removed most of the old French military infrastructure. They kept a little bit of it, but they were really keen to save the big trees. So even though this is maybe only 30 years old, there are some enormous trees in Vauban. And this is one of them right here. This is one of those four-story apartment buildings and lots of kid type places. I talked with some people uh, who were living here, and a lot of people attracted because there's so few cars. It's a safe place for kids. But some people moved here specifically because it's a great place for kids. Kids can go all over the place, and there's just hardly any cars to have to worry about. It's really nice. And this is the apartments above, a little bit, a couple floors above where my friends live, but just really nice. Look at all the trees here. There was a cat that lived up here. I don't know if the cat ever went down to the street, but this is another view of another example of just really humane urban living. I just I could see a real enjoyment of living in a place like Vauban. This scene right here isn't in Vauban, but it's just within a several minute walk. Actually, it's across a creek. But this is a kids' summer camp right here. You could hear and kind of look over the fence and see all these kids doing stuff in there. But lots of activities, lots of of care for children in these places. So this is still the first trip. That's when I visited most of these urban places. My second trip was a little bit more recreational. But here's my bike on a train. You learn, as I did, you take the regional and local trains. You can just put your bike on when you've got a Eurail pass. You just get on the train. You've got to find where the bike car is. There's usually a bike car or a logo that says there's bike space in this car. Um, so that was just extremely convenient, but you didn't know which car was it going to be, near the front of the train or near the back of the train, and people were hustling to get on the train because it doesn't hang out in the station very long. I've got stories about just getting on the train just because I didn't want to be left behind. But I love the trains. This is just when I arrived in Paris and exited the train station. I kind of knew where I needed to go. And this is a bike lane in Paris. And I had all my gear and was just really excited. I had not been in Paris before. And Paris has a reputation as being a city that's really trying to make life better for pedestrians and bikes. Their mayor, Anne Hidalgo, that's part of her most important part of her political platform is the 15, 20-minute neighborhood, and they're removing parking places. Of course, they have the Olympics coming up. They really want to make a good impression. They are really trying to limit automobiles in large parts of Paris. And of course, Paris is known for its just monumental, epic sized public places. This is the Louvre right here. And this huge area back behind me, this goes for about a mile. And this is only not even the entire width of this just gigantic space going back towards the Arc de Triomphe. And so, of course, Paris is one of the world's great cities, and there's just beautiful public space. This is something of a artist representation of what the ideal is for the more residential parts of Paris to be looking like. I didn't see anything that really looked a whole lot like this. There may be, but this is kind of the ideal of not having so many cars. Of course, these would have been parking places at one time, and this is all. I don't know if this is an official uh, representation or just somebody's imagination, but this is kind of what they would like to see. And Paris is an old city and it just doesn't have a grid street structure. These two photos just show you can ride a bike in Paris, and there's lots of places to ride a bike. There's bikeways and bike paths everywhere, but you have a lot of intersections where you have two, three, four, five streets coming together, and how to navigate all of that on a bicycle, even when there's indication where bikes go, you really got to pay attention to where you're going because it's it's a major task to try to make Paris uh, bike friendly. So here is the Arc du Triomphe. And this is another public area here. And of course, that's the Eiffel Tower off in the distance. It's just an amazing city. I love the public places. And of course, there's not any cars here. And this is where the Tour de France ends up sometimes, and they're riding bikes around on this cobble street that's not a very smooth street, actually, but of course attracts a lot of people like me, to come and see it. So here's another illustration, more of a rooftop illustration. There's just so much potential in urban places to make them more humane. Um, and the idea of not having so many cars is an important part of that, but there's other aspects of it too, of making best use of shared space like rooftops, maybe rooftop gardens and these kind of courtyard sort of areas. So Paris has a long way to go, but it's good that they're making these efforts. This is a place I really wanted to go in Paris. This is the Seine River over here. And I think maybe 20 years ago, somebody correct me, I don't know the exact number of years, but this used to be a place for cars right here. It would not have been a freeway. It's not big enough to be a freeway, but it's big enough to have a lot of cars and congestion, a lot of noise, and a lot of polluted air. This is all for pedestrians and bikes now, right along the Seine River. And at one point, this would have been the automobile access to this down here, except these bollards prevent cars from going. So this is actually a tunnel. It's a really long tunnel down here. And you can see all the cars over here. And then just on the other side over this way, that would be the Seine River over there. But this was just beautiful. You could just goes for a few miles. And this is simply one of many really beautiful parks in Paris. It was an unusually warm summer. It just as well could have been 50 degrees and raining. But the weather for that trip was, I think out of 3 months, I saw rain maybe like 5 or 6 days. Good for travel, maybe not good for agriculture and municipal water supplies, but just people like to go to parks, and I just love to go to parks and just see how they are. This is the balcony where my friends live, and this is urban, what it's like living in Paris. And down here, you can see these plants. These are some big planters. These are intended to slow cars down right here. My friend's daughter goes to school just right up this street, and all the parents, they're trying to get the city to completely close this street to cars, not just for the school, but just all the time to have this closed to cars. My friends there in Paris, they don't have a car. They're middle class. When they go for a ski vacation, they take the train. They go to the coast, they take the train, and they don't even rent a car once they arrive to their destination. Last couple pictures of Paris. I went into a bike shop, and this guy spoke good English and had a bike shop and was doing well. His business is improving thanks to city policy. And this picture here, what it shows is these are, you could call these parklets. These are former uh, car parking places that during COVID, there was sitting provided outdoors so there'd be better ventilation and the restaurants could stay open. Almost this entire street had this kind of outdoor seating for these restaurants all along the street. It was just one lane wide. You couldn't, two cars would not fit on this. It's a one-way street, but just lots of pushback right there, turning car parking places into restaurant sitting. So I meandered a good bit between Paris and Barcelona, but we'll go straight to Barcelona here. I just love Barcelona. You love Barcelona. Look at that. This is a very densely populated city right here. Uh, Familia Sagrada right here under construction. This is the Mediterranean out over this way. But one thing that is immediately apparent with Barcelona is it's on a grid. These are right angle streets. This is all residential stuff right here, but of course there's commercial all in here too. But quite a view. I found, of course, this picture on the internet. I didn't take this picture myself, but this is what it looks like when you're up above. I mentioned that I would show a graphic of uh, urban footprints. This is Barcelona right here. And this is Atlanta, Georgia, right here. These are the urban footprints, not just within the city limits, but area that is developed. And this is to scale. This is to scale. And Barcelona and Atlanta, their urban areas have somewhat similar populations. The urban footprint of Atlanta is almost 25 times the size of Barcelona because this, of course, is a lot of suburbia and it's all spread out. Amazingly, both cities have similar uh, uh, built uh, subway, metro, light rail right here. This red here adds up to about the same as Barcelona, but just look at how how much density there is of light rail and subway in Barcelona, and of course, this is. I hope they have enough people to halfway pay for it in Atlanta, and good on them, for trying to get some rail there. But uh, to build this level of density of rail in Atlanta would cost more money than there is. So the United States has just built itself into an enormous corner, and that's an understatement right there. When I went to Barcelona, I stayed with my friend Tony right here, and here's his little dog, Frida. And there's my bike. I put my bike on the wall. I rang the doorbell, and then I came across the street so I could take a picture when Tony came to the door. And it was just great. Tony is an architect. He's teaches architecture and he's very interested in theatrical architecture. But we had met online. I won't go into that story, but what a nice time staying in Barcelona. This is his street right here. And this is not too far. This part of Barcelona is probably one of the nicest parts of of Barcelona. Um, not all of it is as humane as this. This is a plaza, public park. Barcelona's a little bit short on public space compared to a lot of European cities. It's very densely populated and needs more public space. But I just really love the public spaces that I saw. This is the street that um, that Tony lives on. He's back up this way. It's about an 8 or 10 minute walk, but this is a downtown for that part of Barcelona. These are all commercial. There's a copy shop, there's uh, pizza, there's grocery stores. This is where people live. You can see the balconies all up here, and and just bikes and people walking. It's just so nice. This is the same street, a few blocks. There's a an art an art organization here, and Tony told me that what they're doing is they have a big competition in Barcelona to make for this art festival, and different neighborhoods compete to have the best type of artistic endeavor and competing with other neighborhoods. So they're actually out along the street with all this paper mache stuff. And it invites people just to stop and check out what's going on and talk. This is just, it's just such a wonderful way to live. And it's so different. This is even way different than some place like Manhattan. There's a car down here, maybe a car on this part, rarely. It is just almost entirely pedestrian. So we went for a hike up on this hill overlooking Barcelona, the Med is out there. Frida keeps up very well. What a wonderful time. This is another part of Barcelona. You can tell there's a little bit of street over here, but almost all of it is walkway and cafes. There's a lot of Barcelona that looks something like that. And and there's excellent bike infrastructure. I found biking around Barcelona just to be really enjoyable. Um, this is going down towards the Mediterranean. Of course, this is Familia Sagrada here. This would be a car-free street. Um, this is the beach and a promenade along here. This went for a couple of miles. This was just a big park, just beautiful public places. This is another playground for kids. Look at all the bikes and lots of families here. This is another car-free street right here, and you got these big planters to keep cars out of there. So another public place. This is in the old area of Barcelona right here. Look at just this, the architecture here, the palm trees, there's a fountain. Most of these people, of course, like me, they're tourists, but this is what attracts people, to go to a place like Barcelona or lots of other places in Europe too. They like going to a place that's people and not so much cars. This is the iconic uh, promenade in Barcelona, La Rambla, and this goes on for a few miles. It's just a place where people just like to come and walk. And um, this is in that old part of Barcelona also. But part of what is a help to make at least some parts of Barcelona, not so many cars, is they've got a really nice subway metro right here. This is the subway, this is the metro, and as we recall from that graphic, there's a pretty good service for light rail there. So one of the main reasons I wanted to go to Barcelona was because of a land use restoration, redevelopment, reimagine process. Barcelona was told by the European community that you need to do something about your air quality. You need to have more space for people. You need to have a quieter city. This is the European community telling that to Barcelona. And this was maybe something 20 years ago or something. So Barcelona came up with what's known as the Urban Mobility Plan to improve their bus scheduling, their commuter trains, their metro, their make Barcelona a more livable city. But most people would probably say the most glamorous part of this urban mobility plan was to take car space and return it, make it back for people and bikes and pedestrians. This would have been just a regular urban, but a neighborhood street where all this is here, the bench, these people playing chess. These would have been parking places right here and over on the other side too. Maybe a car can go through here at a very slow speed, but it is primarily a pedestrian taking space from cars and making community space. So um, the superblocks are the real core part of this urban mobility plan. Remember, we saw the first picture of Barcelona. This is another, you see the same type of urban development. A superblock is this area right here is kind of like a Rubik's Cube, one side of a Rubik's Cube. And the blue lines in here, these are streets. But these streets here are accessible only by people who live here or a delivery vehicle. Um, they are not through streets. You can't go from here over to here and go straight there. Kind of a little bit like Houten. Remember, if you lived here and you wanted to drive, you'd have to go over here and go over here and go that way. Um, so the whole idea behind the super blocks is to discourage cars and also to return space now that's occupied by cars to make it into people space. So you look at this little red square right here. Imagine this coming over here. This is what that intersection would look like before the super block. So cars go straight across it. They might make a turn, but they go straight across. The super block doesn't mean the cars can't go to that intersection, but they can only make a right-hand turn. You can't go across the intersection. You can only do a right-hand turn in the super block. If you were here and wanted to go over here, you have to go here, here, and all the way around there. You can't go that way. You can only make a right-hand turn, and you can only do like uh, 10 kilometers an hour. You have to be going really slow. So what does this actually look like? This looks like kind of a fantasy. Well, when are they going to start doing this? Well, they're already doing this. This is a what used to be an automobile intersection. This is what it looks like now. You can see the street here. This is where you would make your right-hand turn from here going over here. You can't go across here because there's not any street. So this is one of the pioneering uh, intersection turned into public space. They don't all look like this, and there's only, I don't know if there's even a dozen that this has happened so far. There's a lot more to go. This is still very much the early going for superblocks. You can go on YouTube, and if you search superblocks Barcelona, you can see videos and see more of this. Um, Tony introduced me to his friend Rocco, who's an urban planner, and we walked around, and I had like 2 hours with Rocco, and his English was good. And he was telling me he's a bit critical of the super blocks, even though he was part of designing a super block. We didn't see where he was, but he had some criticism of it that they can cause gentrification. He was concerned that too much money was spent on individual blocks. He wanted less money on individual blocks and have more blocks transformed. He would budget the money differently. But again, this was an automobile infrastructure. I kicked the soccer ball with these kids. You can see some guys over here. Maybe this is a mom and a kid with a friend. People uh, just, it's a park is what it is. And down below here would be commercial, and this would be residential up above. This was a busy automobile infrastructure intersection, and this is what it looks like now. So these are also in the super block area. This is kind of in the early going. It's a process to do this, and of course, there's been a lot of public input for the super blocks, and of course, some people don't want to see it happen. Some merchants were fearful that if cars couldn't access their business, then they wouldn't have any business. It hasn't really turned out that way. A lot of businesses are doing better because of the limited car traffic. Uh, these ones not looking quite as glamorous as some of those other photos, but this would have been a street right here. Um, yeah, here's Rocco and here's Tony. We're having some lunch. This is another playground in what would have been an intersection. This intersection is kind of being worked on. You can see a playground back here. Rocco is having a conversation with this car right here. The car's having to make a right-hand turn. I think it was not a totally congenial conversation right here, judging by this guy's hand right here. So here's another. This is the same um, playground where the conversation was being. But they use lots and lots of potted plants. They're kind of adjustable before they really get into like permanent changes. They put movable types of features out there for people to kind of check out what this might be like. But this would have been all automobiles, just almost this entire open space right here. So that's pretty much most of what I have. Um, got a couple more pictures of Barcelona, but of course you have big open spaces, and it's a nice opportunity for people to make friends, like this right here, and this is another intersection that's in the act of being transformed right here, and this is one of my favorite plazas back over close to where Tony lives. This is actually from here to here is 180 degrees. So this is a panorama. I just kind of fit the photos together, but no cars here, no cars here, no cars here, and just the sidewalk cafes, the people out there, there's scooters, there's kids playing with soccer balls, there's people hanging out. It's a really different kind of urban setting right here. I don't think all of Barcelona is like this. This is probably one of the nicer parts of Barcelona, but it sure it sure gives you a different idea about what a city can be. So this was my last night with some friends in Barcelona. You can see the Mediterranean out there. We're having a little bit of dinner and the next morning I was up early, took the metro to uh, where I take a bus. This is leaving my first trip, 2022. This is on the way to the airport right here. So of course, Barcelona has plenty of freeways as well. So our next visit here is this city right here. It's a city, 45,000. It's a small city, big town, Alghero. And this is uh, Sardinia, the Italian mainland is over this way. This is Corsica. France is up that way. Spain is over that way, quite some distance. So this is an island. I think Sardinia is either the largest or second largest island in the Mediterranean. This distance from here to here is 130, 140 miles. It's not huge, but it's nice size. I love Sardinia, but we're here to take a look at Alghero. This is Alghero, and it is a popular destination. A lot of people like to go to Alghero because there's beaches and there's lots of interesting features nearby. One of the most interesting features, of course, this is the old town right here. This is medieval wall. Some of these buildings in here, of course, 4, 5, 600 years old. And this would have been the medieval town right here. And these are some towers right here. Uh, and of course, now this is what's called a lungomare, all this along here, along the sea. And in the evening, people are just out strolling. Uh, there's cars here, but as you go this way, there become fewer and fewer cars. And this all along here is car free, all that over here. And but along here, which I've walked many times, I love it. I'm in love with Alghero. There's a street, but then there's a really nice bikeway. This is really nice bikeway. So there's a good bit of a buffer between where people are walking and where the cars are, and the cars aren't going very fast either. This is kind of a big piazza right here. And of course, they maintain the integrity of the visuals here in the old town, but these buildings, some of them 4 or 5, 600 years old, you go inside and they're fancy restaurants and they're selling jewelry and they're selling expensive clothes and stuff like that. But from the outside, much of this looks probably a lot like it did a long time ago. And of course, this area here faces the west, and these are all outdoor cafes. In the evening, there's just people out walking and people having dinner. It's just really one of my favorite places. And then the um, the the geography of the area is great. I did lots of bike riding. There's a um, different attractions nearby, geographic. There's a big cave. Um, so it's not just the town in the old town that are really beautiful. There's lots of really nice stuff nearby. This is where I stayed. I rented an apartment for 3 weeks right about here. And so some of the pictures I'm going to show are on this street right here. That's the main street of town. It's one lane in each direction. And it's interesting, some of the pictures I have will contrast what it's like here, where it's basically car free, and what it's like over here. And then this area over here is also Lungomare. Lots of people over here. This is more the tourist part of town. Here's another picture, sort of at a different angle right here. Again, this is the medieval wall. This is the old town, and you can go. There's a bikeway, a bike path for bikes that goes all the way out about this far, right out here. And lots of people. These are all hotels and tourist kind of vacation stuff. But this part of Alghero here is just a funky Italian town, and for all its problems, I just really love it, and it's got plenty of problems. But I arrived by bicycle. I started out in another part of Sardinia and rode my bike. This is Alghero, and this is where I stayed here on that street. And just directly below the where I stayed on this fourth floor is a cafe and an awesome pizza place. Just right down here, there's a veterinarian. There you can have your hair done. Almost everything you need on a daily basis is within walking distance here. So I was able to make my own meals. I rented my friend's place. She was gone for a couple of weeks, so I rented the place while she was gone. And to go from camping out and being on my bike to being having a refrigerator and cold beer and just having all this awesome food I wouldn't have had if I was camping. It was just like I was just ready for it. So this is part of that lungomare, and this feature out here is called Capocaccia, and there's this beautiful cave out here. You can take a boat out here, or you can ride your bike. I've been all back out here on a bicycle all over the place, way back there. It's not so far, and this is getting closer to the old town, this part of the wall over here. It's just such a beautiful place. And this is that part of the wall, the medieval wall, and I mentioned all the cafes here. This is a street blocked off. Maybe it's only blocked off in the summertime, but of course, this is all restaurants, and this is the Lungomare. And there's a bikeway here. That's my bike right there. So kind of pushing back on cars right there, at least for the summertime. And this is uh, part of that Lungomare. The previous picture was taken back over here. You can see these hills off in the distance. I've been bike riding all over the place back there. It's just unbelievable bike riding. But just people out walking. The cars kind of stop here and you go back this way and there's no cars. It's car free, and people are just enjoying the sunset, and you have these birds. The swifts are just flying all over the place, and the sunsets. It's just a little bit of heaven. So here's a couple of pictures, a real contrast. This is in the old town right here. Of course, it's a popular tourist destination for good reason. Um, but this is just going to walk around, going to do some shopping. And this is that street. This is the main street where I was back up this way, another 3 or 4 blocks. Look at all the cars. There's tons. There's cars everywhere, and uh, and it's there's always construction going on somewhere. You can't, they're doing something with the utilities. I'm not sure what. Um, I was looking at street level on Google where you can go down to the street and you can kind of look around. I saw this truck on Google. The reason I took the picture is not really very considerate. Look, this truck is just taking up a lot of sidewalk space. So everything is not perfect in Alghero. You just kind of have to like it or not, just for the way it is. Look at all these cars. And there are places in the pavement where the paving brick's gone, and if you're not paying attention, you could sort of turn an ankle. It's not that bad most places, but just look at that. It's it's just the way it is because Italians like cars a lot. They tend to be smaller, but there's a lot of them. But this is a vegetable store I went to, and this is just right on the street, a couple blocks from where I stayed right here. I kind of got to know the people who own the little store, and of course, it's closed for 2.5 hours during the middle of the day. But this was a very popular place. Further down the street, there was a regular grocery store, with the barcode checkout and all of that. They've got all of that stuff, but still some remnants of a sort of a simpler time as well. So these pictures are more in the vacation part of Alghero. So you have the really nice bikeway right here, totally. And people just like to be out at the cafe, have dinner, have a beer. This is the beach over here. Uh, it's just a really nice place to be. This is the older part of Alghero. There was this kind of park in this paved area, and they do tango there. One evening, I saw some gals doing like I think it's Zumba. Is that what it is? Where you're doing these kind of exercise dance? They were what a view to have for having your class. I met some people here, and you talk and just an unbelievable view. And then just right over here off the picture, the park is crumbling. There's big cracks, and it's not really very well taken care of. But this part still is pretty functional. This is a little beach that's just a little bit south of Alghero. I'd been out on a bike ride and coming back into Alghero along the coast here, and I just stopped at this beach for an hour and these nice little waves coming in. Just beautiful. Well, there's an urban history that goes way back. This is a place called Palmavera. It's about a 20-25 minute bike ride from uh, from Alghero. This is a neuralgic site. This is a Bronze Age civilization that existed. Uh, this site here goes back something, they figure its first construction something like 1500 BC. That's like 3,500 years ago. And the place was occupied pretty much continuously for 600 years. This is looking down at Palmavera right here. This is a little town, and they had these towers. Were they defensive or what? There's still a lot of question marks about. They didn't have a written language. They had art, and they traded. The Phoenicians came here, um, but just part of the history of Sardinia. The Mediterranean's full of history. Of course, the world is full of history, but this is a pretty interesting bit of early urban design. Of course, this was all pedestrian everywhere, and were these houses where people lived? I think maybe so, but um, that's and there's lots of neuralgic remains all over Sardinia as well. So here's the sun going down again, and people just enjoying a nice quiet time. And meanwhile, back over on Main Street, I saw a small wreck and they were yelling at each other with their hands out, gesturing, and they didn't quite get to the point of fighting, but it came pretty close. That's the sort of up-to-date part of downtown. And then this is another part of Alghero right there. And these two pictures I took when I was on my bike, actually awaiting, for the traffic light. There are no bike lanes, and there's motorcycles, there's cars, bicycles, and scooters, electric scooters. There's everything, and they're all trying to get the best position for when the traffic light turns green. So, all of that said, I really love Alghero. It's just so different of an urban kind of a place from what I've been used to my whole life. Of course, I've lived mostly in suburbia and still do, but just a highlight of my traveling career to have been able to be there for enough time to really kind of at least make a good acquaintance with the place. Maybe I go back next year. So here is another urban area. And of course, you could look at that and say, oh, where's that? Well, this is Ostia Antica. This is, of course, a representation of what Ostia Antica kind of looked like almost 2,000 years ago. This was the port city for Rome. When I left Sardinia this last time, my most recent last summer, I went to Ostia Antica because I just love this kind of old stuff. And so I spent a good part of the day here. Of course, this is all ruins now, but there's a lot of ruins to look at. I'll show some pictures. But interestingly, Ostia Antica is a couple miles from the Mediterranean. The shoreline is different from what it used to be. You can used to be bring a boat in here, and you can imagine they would offload cargo from all over the Mediterranean 2,000 years ago. Can you imagine what would be coming off of those ships? I've walked around here. This is the amphitheater. There was a sort of a big public bath here. I've been walking around all over here. Um, of course, there's a lot left, and there's really good signage and explaining what you're looking at, both in Italian and English. So I just always wanted to go here, and this is a thermopolium. This is a fast food outlet right here. This is what it looks like now. I was in here. I sat in here for half an hour just going like, I cannot believe that there were people walking around. This is kind of the counter here. You go get some, you know, radishes or apples or whatever it is they were selling there. It was hot, and you'd go sit at a table with your friends and you do just what people do. What'd you do today? Or you gossip about people. That's what went on here. And this picture here is almost the same view with an artist sort of. This is what maybe it actually looked like when it was 2,000 years ago. It just blows my mind looking at this. Look at this like artwork. There's plates here. You pick up a few apples or whatever those are. There's baskets. This right here, of course, is the serving counter. That's what this is right here. You can even see that archway that's right there. Uh, it's just it's just amazing. This is the amphitheater here, of course, uh, would have accommodated several thousand people. This was a small city. This is a street. People lived in apartments here. You would have to have walked up, no elevators. There were granaries. There were different types of organizations that had their headquarters. There were places where merchants did their work. There were stores. This is just this mosaic right here was a public bath right here. I actually stood up here and looked down on this. I don't have any of my own pictures because my bicycle and a bunch of stuff was stolen while I was here. So these are all pictures that come off of the internet, but I did look down on these mosaics and just to imagine what life was like in this place 2,000 years ago, Ostia Antica. And this is, I've been to Pompeii before, but I really like this picture. I saw this picture. This is Pompeii, not too far away. And this is a street right here in Pompeii. And these are bollards. These are like 2,000-year-old bollards to keep the wheeled vehicles from going back behind where the picture was taken and keep the wheeled vehicles out of where the pedestrians are. Of course, they didn't have cars, but they had carts with wheels. And this was to keep them away from the pedestrians. So it's kind of an early descendant of pushing back on cars right here, just kind of like these bollards right here to keep the pedestrians, safe from a wheeled vehicle. So I'm going to show just a few more. Those were the main places that I wanted to show. Uh, I want to show a few more pictures of just other public places. This is Ljubljana, Slovenia. I just had a train stop here for a couple hours. And because I had a bicycle, I could bike. This is better part of a mile from the train station down to here. But just look at this center of town. There's a little river down here. Uh, there's a fountain. There's cafes back over this way. I biked around here. I just stood at different places on these bridges. There's a big kind of a fort on a big hill, kind of looking down on this. Just check out the architecture of this. Somebody who knows about architecture could describe what sort of style this is for hours. I don't know. You can just look at it and just say the color and just people like to come to a place like this. I wish that I'd been able to spend more time in Ljubljana. Is just one of the most charming sort of center of towns, just for people to walk around and enjoy the place. This is another town that I went to in Croatia, Dumovar. I was expecting to ride my bike to Dumovar and to the train station and meander my way into Hungary. Well, I found the train station, but there weren't any trains anymore. So I had to go all the way back to Zagreb. But anyway, that's a different story. But they're downtown. A few cars here, but just how wide the sidewalks are, and there's a big kind of almost like a big plaza right here. So I just found this Croatia. Um, people live, they have their lives and they want to have towns that are reasonably nice to live in. This is a place I visited with a Hungarian friend. I don't pronounce this the right way, the way the Hungarians would pronounce this. You would never think you'd pronounce it that way. It's not Baja, it's not Baja, it's something else. But my friend and I, he lives in another town about 20 miles from here, but we took a train. There's train service between a town of 2,000 and a town of 20,000. This is the larger town. There's scheduled trains between a town of 2,000 and 20,000, and there's several every day. My friend works for the railroad, but we biked around. We took our bikes over here because it's close to the Danube River. And this is just, once again, a picture from the internet. I took a picture and it actually looked more lively than this, but just this little car-free downtown. Look at the bikes. Just a wonderful little place. I just love stuff like that. And this is Janashalma, where my friend does live. This is the small 2,000 person town, and this is kind of they have a little bit of a car-free area. You can see the bollards down here. And this is an important church in town. But what makes this picture really special for me is that just down below here, where you can't really off the picture, there's a cafe, and my friend and one of his friends, we would have beer there and we just talk about stuff. We just have beer. And and they told me a little story about this place right here where you see this green arrow. Back in the time when Hungary was occupied by the Soviet Union, there was a a statue, a war memorial of Russian soldiers who had come to liberate uh, Hungary, and I'm sure the local people appreciated that, but I think they didn't appreciate the Soviet soldiers staying there, and that's kind of what they did. So this was kind of a propaganda statue saying, "Oh, you really want to love your Soviet soldiers because they did a favor, but they wore out their welcome." When the Hungarian uprising took place in 1956. It was all over Hungary. It wasn't just Budapest. Um, this statue was vandalized. It got pulled over. My friends told me about that, and they're old enough to remember that stuff. Um, but then the uprising was not successful. The statue was put back up again, and then, of course, some number of years later, the Soviet Union kind of said we've had enough, and then finally, the the statue to the Soviet soldiers was removed for good. Just a story like that that happened right here. I'd like to hear a bit of history about a place like that. I've always had a fascination with that part of the world. I've traveled a lot in those Eastern European countries years ago when it was still behind the Iron Curtain. So this is Ventspils, Lithuania. I went to Ventspils because that's where the ferry was that went to Stockholm. But this is just a really nice public place, a car-free place in Ventspils. And this is, once again, very interesting architecture there. I just love to see architecture and what towns look like. This is just they have this, somebody puts a lot of time and money into these floral displays that are kind of here and there all over town. Very nicely done. Oh, gee, what do we want to look at here? Um, well, just really quick, the common denominator is this is Trento, Italy, uh, Old Town, no cars. This is a really nice festival here. And of course, this is the Il Duomo in Milano, just big public spaces. There's my bike right there. This is Livorno. I took a ferry from here to Corsica and just a big outdoor market right here. This is Cinque Terre. I forgot which town, but just this is an urban place, but it's just such a different kind of urban place. I just, they're not perfect, but and it doesn't look like it's particularly accessible unless you can walk, but it's pretty beautiful. I biked the French Riviera, and I'm not sure if this is Cannes or Saint Tropez or someplace. I don't know, but it's once again it's a lungomare. There's the Med here. This is another place here, the Mediterranean. Uh, People like to be in pretty places. This is La Promenade des Anglais in Nice, right here. This is some famous hotel and a bikeway along the French Riviera. That was several days. What a lot of fun that was. So, oh, yeah, this is Carreno Planio. This is on Lago di Como, northern Italy. And it's a popular place to go to. It's not like everybody in Italy lives in a place like this, but some people do. And I just love the the steps and the arches and this, of course, this is Lago di Como down here. the all the care of just look at somebody's put all these potted plants out here, and there's little artistic touches. People do live here. Um, it's just it's just a wonder that people can live in a place like this. And then I saw this little placemat right here. It says Benvenuti da Moschi, Pistachio, and Spritz, the little cats and the dog. And then here in the fine print, it says Giorgio e Maria vivano qui con noi. They live here. These are the humans. And it says Giorgio and Maria, they live here too. As if the house is owned by the two cats and the dog. I just cracked up laughing when I saw this. It is just so funny. Um, a sense of humor, just great. Well, okay, one more picture. No, we can't end it on this one, but just to give equal time, I biked into this town, Viterbo, and the traffic was just some of the worst traffic I'd ever seen. I saw this a number of times in Europe where there's bigger box, car oriented, larger commercial businesses, not in the town, but a little bit out of town with the big parking lots, and nobody's going to walk out to these places. I saw that here and there. I saw that in Hungary. I saw that in Poland. I saw that not quite like we have here, but the traffic here in Viterbo was just terrible. I tried to capture some of that from up on this little hillside right here. So, yes, there's just beautiful places in Europe, but they've got car problems too. Well, this is bike riding. Alghero is back here. I was riding up along the coast here, and I just unbelievable unbelievable view. This road goes up to like 1,000 feet above sea level. And this is actually Capocaccia out here. Maybe we'll end it on this picture. I just went for a walk in this little town named Mara in Sardinia, and you just don't know who you're going to meet when you go out for a walk. Actually, it was an event I went to, and most of these people went to that event. It had a permaculture connection to it. This is actually my friend who I rented the apartment from. I saw her last summer as well. This gentleman right here told me that if I came to live there in Mara, he would find a wife for me. I asked him, would that include some terreno, some real estate as well? But anyway, this is just a great picture. I met somewhat most of these people here because it was an event that was partly permaculture, but just a wonderful little urban location here. So I am going to say that's enough. I've been going for long enough. Um, so again, this is Jan Spencer here in Eugene, Oregon. We've been looking at pictures of Europe, and this is part of the Primer for Paradigm Shift series.